Welcome to the MX podcast featuring Dan Roberts.
Happy Christmas and welcome to the final episode of series number 1 of the MX podcast. I hope you've been enjoying it so far. Now today I'm doing something a little bit different. So last few days I've been asking people on social media to ask me questions for me to answer today because I thought a Q&A would be a bit more fun. So I've picked my favourite 10 questions and I'm going to answer them today. Now these questions vary. Some are about me and my personal life, some are about my clientele, some are about philosophy and psychology, some are about fitness. There's a whole random mix of questions and I thought it'd be quite fun to do like a random episode. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll probably get the most out of it, or if you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, I hope you enjoy it, but probably check it out on YouTube as well. Even though hardly anyone follows me on YouTube, I only set up the channel in the summer and I haven't really promoted it yet, but I am enjoying doing videos, so please do check out Dan Roberts TV on YouTube. Alright, so let me get my hat on because I always think better with hats, and let's get going with question number 1. So, what is my favourite TV show? Well, I think I've probably watched more TV in the last 6 months than I have in the last 6 years, thanks to lockdown. So, it's a tough one. I think recently, actually it's not that tough because I just finished watching a series about a week ago and I adored every minute of it and I thought it was genius and I thought it was amazing and I thought the lead character, the girl in it, was just so, the character was just so attractive and alluring and sexy and I was kind of smitten. I thought it was fantastic. It's called The Queen's Gambit. Fantastic show about a chess prodigy, and I'm really pleased because it could have gone, I think it was a book, I never read the book, but I didn't know anything about it, I just watched it, but it could have gone sort of a dark, cynical way, but it didn't. It's actually a really nice story and the character was just amazingly well played and just, I think like most people, I just kind of fell in love with her. I thought it was fantastic. So watch The Queen's Gambit and enjoy that. Other shows I've liked. I mean, there was a show I loved on Netflix about 2 years ago before it got cancelled called Sense8. That is so clever. It kind of mixtures action and philosophy. It's the Wachowski sisters. These girls did the Matrix trilogy. So like that, it's very, very clever, and it's multi-layered, so you can watch it again and again and get more out of it. And it's about empaths. It's just a very clever series, massive budget behind it. It's all beautiful cinematography all over the world, and it's action and it's interesting and it's philosophical. It's sort of existential in a way, the way you think about how we are linked to other people. It's very, very clever. So check out Sense8. Other stuff I like, I like switching off watching comedies. I guess my favourite comedy in recent years would be Eastbound and Down. That's by Danny McBride. It's so naughty. It's so un-PC and so naughty. It's about a down and out baseball player who's a misogynist and a cokehead, and he's just like the worst person, and it's him trying to get back into the major leagues, and it's very naughty and it's very, very amusing. So check out Eastbound and Down. Other shows I've liked recently, Toast with Matt Berry, Toast of London, about an actor in Soho. I work in Soho and I'm a member of kind of like trendy members clubs in Soho, so he talks and take the piss out of that scene quite well. So if you know the world of theatre, or you know the kind of like the Groucho Club type world, particularly like of the 90s and 2000s in Soho, then you'll really like Toast of London, so check that out. Aside from that, Mighty Boosh is a big favourite, Monty Python, any kind of surrealist comedy I'm a fan of. So yeah, they're my shows, that's what I like. If any of you are listening and you've got a really good recommendation, let me know. I'm always on Instagram, Team Dan Roberts. I'm always happy to get recommendations. The last 2 books I've read were just recommendations for people on Instagram, so I do try to take inspiration everywhere. So yeah, let me know what you're into. Alright, question number 2. What is MX? Alright, quite a few people ask this. I'm hoping you already know what MX is because you listen to the MX podcast, but if you don't, very briefly, it's a workout for women. That's it. Now it's actually, as of 6 months ago, it's actually a separate company. So Methodology X is a company in its own right, sitting under the umbrella of the Dan Roberts Group. The Dan Roberts Group is an organization I established many years ago now, and it's grown. So it's a group of companies, that's what's called a group. And we have different companies under that. We have a personal training business, we have a retreat business, and other things. And one of the businesses now we have Methodology X. It started off just as a little ebook workout, but obviously it's grown. Now it warrants a company, and it has a couple of components really. The first component is an online membership club where you just you pay for it and then you log in, and then you have this access to this entire world of resources to help you get lean, fit, and love your body. It's pretty big. It's a big membership system. There's lots of workouts in there. You go through a program, so it's not just like live workouts. You actually go through a guide. So day by day, the exercises change and they adapt as you get stronger and fitter. And it took a long time to create, and I've tweaked it over the years and improved it. And there's a lot to it. So there's the online club, and also there's a class. Classes were released. Well, they started, I think, 2 years ago now, 2.5 years ago, they first started, and they've since grown. And now we have classes in 7 different countries, soon to be 8 countries. We have a bunch of certified Methodology X trainers. They've studied under me because we have nationally accredited qualifications people can study, and they're leading these classes. And we have a bunch of different MX classes, MX Vogue, MXL, MX Vanity Flair. There's a whole bunch. There's 15 different MX classes, and every quarter I write another couple of classes, so they're expanding. So maybe you've done a class, that's why you've found this podcast, I don't know, but they're the two things. MX is basically a workout for women. We have the online workout and we have the classes, and it's very much for lean. It's really for like women who want to be lean and toned and fit. It's not for girls who want to get muscular. It's not for girls who just want to get skinny. When I originally wrote it, it was designed for models, fashion models in particular. I was working with quite a lot of Victoria's Secret girls at the time, so that look was in mind. That kind of toned and slim, but not too muscular and not too catwalk, kind of in between. It's just kind of grown over the years. We have thousands of members, and it's won awards. Tatler gave an award. Tatler magazine gave it an award in the annual Gym Awards 2 years ago now, and it's continually growing. We have some new launches next year relating to Methodology X, and because it's its own separate brand and separate company, it's kind of easier for it to grow now in a way because it's its own separate entity. I'm the managing director of the company that looks after MX, and we have a little team helping it grow. So it's all very exciting. And this podcast is an extension of the brand, and it's nice just to help more fans of the workout and give them more support. All right, hopefully that answers the question, what is MX? All right, next question. What is the best exercise for my glutes? Well, it depends. If you want to get bigger or smaller, how you want to shape them, is it more by the side, more lifted up? It does depend, but I'm guessing for most of you, it's to get more firmness and a bit more kind of curve at the bottom. So there's more definition where the hamstring ends and the bum starts, so you have a bit more of a shelf. That's generally what most women want when they say they want better glutes. Now, if you're really overweight, if you're really fat, you're not going to have much definition there, and losing weight will get you better glutes than adding an exercise. So I think if you are size 16 UK or above, even size 14 to be honest, which is not that big, but if you are size 14 or up, losing weight and doing a general weight loss program, which is essentially eating less food than you're burning, that's it. That's how you lose weight. Ideally, you do exercise, you mix in weight training with cardio, and with eating, you eat healthy food. You don't just starve yourself, but you be careful on the portions. If you have a calorie deficit, round about sort of 500 calories a day, every week your body will look a little bit slimmer. Simplest thing. Well, simple in theory, it's harder in practice. Obviously, we all have a different relationship with exercise and food, and that's where following a program like MX or Nuxu or Kayla Itzines or P90X or whatever it may be, following a program can be quite good because it forces you to have a somewhat variety of training, and it keeps you accountable. Now, if you're slimmer, let's say sort of size UK 12, 10, 8, 6, and you want to have like a better glutes, then really there's a few exercises. There's hip thrusts, there's Romanian deadlifts, and basically there's just variations of deadlifts. Even a hip thrust is kind of a variation of a deadlift because it's all about your glutes. I mean, I guess back hyperextension or hip extension stuff. But let me show you a deadlift because that's the one I teach the most. All my clients, be they a model or an actress or anyone working in an office and they want to get better glutes, I always focus on the Romanian deadlift because it's such an amazing exercise. It really hits the hamstrings and the glutes, which is great because you want good glutes, you also want good and firm hamstrings as well. It's also really good for your lower back. Let me show you. Let's have a little room. So let me change the angle a little bit. So in terms of weights, let's worry about weights in a second. Now, start off straight. Tilt your hips. So you want a tilt. So imagine your hips are like this. You like a bowl of water. You tilt, and when you tilt it, the water's pouring forward. That's what you want because that engages the lower back. Then you bend from the hips. See, I'm bending my knees a little bit. Okay, and then I want to be a flat back. See how flat my back is? What most people do is that. Now, when you're lifting a light weight, it's not that dangerous, but when you're lifting a heavy weight, that's going to really mess up your back. You want to aim for perfect form. With a deadlift, you can get away with 9 out of 10 form, but aim for 10 out of 10. So, you see here, flat back. My head is not up because I'll strain my neck. My head is in line with my torso. And then I stand up, focusing on the hips. So I basically stick my bum out, I bend over, and I straighten up. Now, how much my knee bends depends on my limb length. If I had really, really, really long legs, then I'd have to bend them more. If I have really short legs, I'd bend them less. That's why if you look at a trainer or someone on Instagram doing a deadlift and yours doesn't look exactly the same, that's not a bad thing. We all have different mechanics, you know. The main thing is the principle. The principle is flat back, straight up. Now, in a bit more detail, when you stand up, if you push your weight through your toes, you're going to put more emphasis on the quads. If you push your weight through your heels, you put more emphasis on the posterior chain. Posterior chain is hamstrings, bum, lower back. These are the muscles we want to work. We're stretching them out. These are the ones we want to work with the deadlift. So drive your weight through your heels as you stand up. Also, as you finish, you want to tense up your abs and your glutes. Helps to remind them to engage. Okay. Now, in terms of weights, start off light. I mean, these are 6 kilos, so this is 12 kilos in total. This is a good warm-up weight. If it's dumbbells, what you can do, you can come forward and then you go to the side. That's quite good because it's easier for posture, to have good posture. If you had a barbell, you just keep it in front of you. If you had a trap bar, you keep them by the side. So, depending on what you're using, you change the angle slightly. Now, in terms of how heavy you should go, let me come and sit down. Leather trousers aren't great for deadlifts, by the way. But yeah, in terms of weights, you can go pretty heavy. Now, I don't know if any of you watched the video. I did a video a little while ago, an hour-long video, which I don't know where it is. It's not on YouTube, it's somewhere. All about how to train Victoria's Secret models for shows. And I went in detail about deadlifts, and I was explaining one of my old clients, who won, lovely girl, she won Britain's Next Top Model a few years ago, and she got so strong with me, she managed to deadlift 95 kilos. And obviously I wasn't trying to bulk her up, I just wanted her to be fit and strong and get ready for her shoots, her fashion shoots. And yeah, 95 kilos. Now, if I got up to like 120 kilos with her, she'd be a bit too muscular. But 95, she still kept her kind of model proportions and small hips, small waist and small legs and stuff. So you can get amazingly strong. Generally speaking, you can go to like 1.25 times your body weight without getting a bit bigger. Some of my female athletes, like professional athletes I've worked with, are lifting like 2.5 times their body weight in terms of deadlifts. And hip thrusts, you can go up to like, with a hip thrust, probably like 3 or 4 times your body weight. But you are going to have some, a bit of size, and that's not for everybody. So yeah, going back to the question, Romanian deadlifts. That's the way forward. How many sets and reps should you do? Well, if you do that 3 times a week and you do, let's say, 50 reps at a time, so 4 sets of 12, I know that doesn't make 50, or 3 sets of 15, around about 40 or 50 reps, that'll do the job. That'll be enough difference. As you get fitter, you can go, as you get stronger, you can go a little bit heavier. You want to gradually lift the weight up as the weeks go on, maybe like 2 to 5% heavier every week or two, maybe every few weeks. Just make it gradually make it harder because your body's adapting all the time, and that will make a dramatic difference in your glutes. You'll get more of a shelf. All right, does that help? All right, next question. Who is your funniest client? I've been lucky over the years. I love my clients, and I've got my regular clients, people I see like all the time. I've also got clients I see whenever they're doing a project like a film, and I've also got these like random experiences where a lot of time from America people fly in and I see them for like maybe a couple of months and I'd never see them again. So over the years, when I talk about my clients, there's a whole bunch of people I can choose from, and I've been lucky that I've been introduced and I've got to work with so many talented, fun, and just nice people. Now, in terms of who's the funniest, I guess you want to know famous people, right? Because Ben is really funny, but you don't know who the fuck Ben is because he runs a business in Soho. But I find him particularly amusing. So yeah. But in terms of famous clients, let me think. All right, there's a few girls I can think of. Suki's very funny. Obviously, I've been training Suki Waterhouse for like 5-6 years, and I always like spending time with her. She's very amusing. Kate Beckinsale, very very funny, very smart, very funny. Emma Stone, very sharp, very nice, very funny. Chelsea Handler, very rude, very funny. Who else? That's a few. I feel like I'm name dropping now. I guess you know what I do for a living. I've been lucky. I work a lot of movies, so I get to meet a lot of Hollywood types. But yeah, those girls are particularly funny. Kate Beckinsale, I find particularly amusing. You should follow her on Instagram. She's bonkers in the best way possible. All right, so another question. How do I get small thighs? Well, lose weight. Your thighs are probably a mixture of muscle and fat, right? Most of the time, fat takes up more space because it's squidgier, muscle's firmer, so it takes up less space. So unless you're like a hardcore powerlifter, chances are it's body fat you want to reduce rather than muscle. The way you can test that is by standing up, tensing your leg up, and when it's tensed up hard, see if you can wiggle it. If you can't wiggle it, it's probably muscle. If you can wiggle it, it's fat. You probably know if it's fat or muscle, right? So if you've got too much body fat for you, then you need to look at your diet, you need to look at your activity, and you need to look at exercise. They're the 3 big variables. Mindset is another kind of key variable which kind of affects all of this. And I actually did a podcast about this, about the best way of losing weight. It's like a 25-minute podcast, maybe like a month ago or so ago. So you can check that out if you want a more detailed response. But the main thing is eating less calories than you burn. So if it's not a bad idea every so often just to spend a couple of days tracking what you eat. If you're completely unaware what you put in your body, that's not great. You shouldn't be obsessed, but you should be aware. So spending a couple of days tracking isn't a bad idea. So yeah, make sure you're not snacking. You don't need to snack. Just have like 3 meals a day. Or you can do intermittent fasting. It's not bad, where you give yourself a window. I do that occasionally, where I eat between like 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. and the rest of the time I don't eat. I don't necessarily eat less, but I find that when you're trying to lose weight, then if you're constantly putting food in your mouth, you're really telling your body the wrong thing. Your body can survive being a little bit hungry. There's an interesting thing about diet culture, how toxic it is. I find that a little bit reductive as an argument. Diet culture it's very easy to say, but dieting is not toxic. If you're overweight and want to get skinnier, want to get slimmer, whatever word you want to use, that's not necessarily toxic. Doing anything to excess is toxic. These things are quite nuanced and complex, and it's too easy just to suddenly label something saying it's bad. Well, it's bad for mental health, it's bad for this. Nothing is necessarily bad. You have to go in depth. If you want to lose weight because you feel like you want to or need to, well, good for you. And let's get a good strategy to help you. So yeah, look at your calories. Get rid of bullshit in your diet like alcohol and like chocolates and crisps. If you really want to lose weight, you have to have some sacrifice, right? The reason you have bigger thighs or are bigger than you want to be is because of the choices you've made. If you want to get slimmer, then you have to make different choices, and that means going a bit out of your comfort zone and making a bit of sacrifice. But there's nothing wrong in that, Same as if you want to make £1 million next year, then you have to sacrifice your social life. You have to be smart and work hard. Any kind of thing you want to achieve, there are sacrifices. If you really want to focus on being the best wife you can be or best husband you can be, that will probably take more of your time, and you might have to let other things go. Or if you really want to be an amazing parent, it's very hard to be an amazing parent, but also be amazing at everything else because it takes time. There's always opportunity cost and there's always sacrifice. So that's why I think in life you have to figure out what's important to you at any given day, month, year, and then live by your values. Live by what's important. Then you don't feel guilty. Now, in terms of exercise, a mixture of weight training and cardio is the way forward. In terms of weight training, focus on the big moves only. So things like bench press, lat pull down, rows, deadlift, squats, the big movements, they make sense. Don't go crazy on squats because you don't want your leg muscles to work too hard. That's why posterior exercises like deadlifts or even backwards lunges rather than forward lunges make sense. Lats are big muscles, glutes are big muscles, do stuff like that. In terms of cardio, mix high intensity interval training with long slow distance training known as LSD training. I find a nice mix is to do interval training first and straight afterwards do the cardio. I find that gets better results. Do like the long cardio. So do like Tabata training, which is 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, 8 rounds. It's 20 minutes of pure hell. Do that, and then straight afterwards do like half an hour straight afterwards, be it running or on a bike. I find that works really well. In terms of cardio machines, I find that the VersaClimber is the most effective for my clients. If you don't have one of those, an assault bike. If you have one of those, a cross trainer or just running is good. Step is good as well. So yeah, and also just to kind of wrap that all up, mindset is massive when it comes to changing your body. One, you've got to be really clear about what you want and why you want it. Otherwise, motivation will wane. You have to be really crystal clear. I'd actually write it down, like why you want to, get X amount of size thighs, or why you want to get stronger in your pecs, whatever your goal is. Write it down, be really clear, make sure you've got good reasons behind it. If it's because, you'd quite like to be slimmer, that's not good motivation. If it's really important to you, that'll give you the motivation, And there's nothing wrong being a little bit, not obsessed, but focused, I guess. I think sometimes people who are a bit lazy call people who achieve stuff obsessed. Oh my God, they're a workaholic. Oh my God, they're an exercise fanatic. Oh my God, this. And it's like, well, yeah, but if you really want to sort of do something cool, you have to be a little bit obsessed, right? Right? Anyone who runs a good company is a little bit of a workaholic. Anyone who's got a great body is a little bit exercise obsessed. As long as you're not harming people, as long as you've got a bit of balance in your life and you're happy, there's nothing wrong in that. And I'd argue it's a better way of living than living in like a mediocre life where you never really push yourself and it's just a bit blur. I think it's more fun to have little obsessions and then obsess about something else and focus on this and focus on that. And I don't know, it's the way I live my life. I get really focused on things and I get really good at them, like a sport. Like I get really focused on running and I compete in ultramarathons. Then I get bored and I stop. Then I focus on something else and another sport. And I think that's better than just always running 5k every day. It's boring. Just my opinion. May not be right. I don't know. So, another question. How did I get into fitness? Well, I got into fitness when I was like 14, 15. I was really fat as a kid. I was really overweight. So I decided to get into running. I was quite good at tennis, actually. I started tennis when I was 12. But aside from that, I wasn't sporty at all. I was one of the kids who'd always picked last for football and picked last for rugby. I wasn't naturally sporty whatsoever, which kind of makes me a good coach because I can totally get it when people don't get things quickly. I never got things quickly. I just kind of put the hours in. That's another story. So yeah, I got into running. I grew up in Stockport, just south of Manchester, northwest England, and I went running every night, and I really fell in love with running, and that helped my tennis. I became quicker and better at tennis. I got a reputation for never giving up and running for every ball. So I do kind of like sprint training and agility training after school, and I'd practice against this wall at the end of my road. There was this big tennis wall with like just a wall, just a brick wall basically, and sort of someone drew a line for a net, and I used to practice for hours and practicing my backhand, practicing my serves, and coming in and practicing sort of serving, running in, doing a volley, and I got really good at tennis. I ended up I captained my university tennis team, and I became a tennis coach. That was my first job when I was 16. I was 15. I first qualified as a coach, and I was an assistant coach for my local team when I was 16. And when I was at university, I helped pay my way through university by teaching not only the university club, but also other universities nearby and also a local school. I was their head tennis coach. So that kind of paid my way through uni to a large degree. So I got into fitness via running, which got me better at tennis, and then being a tennis coach. And I also became a lacrosse coach, and I became an athletics coach. And then when I was 22, I moved to Australia. And when I was living there, long story, but I was living in a monastery. There's a long story behind that, which I'll talk about another time. But I was living in a monastery and working in a monastery, and I ran away, which is another long story, which I'll talk about another time. And one thing led to another, and I found myself in Brisbane, and I was hungover one morning, and I was not a very good Buddhist, obviously, and I was wandering around, and I saw this sign saying fitness instructors qualify today. Enrolling today, half price. This sign, this billboard, and I was like, well, that's interesting because I already missed my bus. I was supposed to go down to Sydney, where I had a flat, and I missed it because I was so hungover, and I was just wandering around, and I got lost, and there's this sign, and I guess I saw it as a sign from the universe. And because I like fitness, but I didn't really know how to train, I ran, and I don't think I had lifted weights at that point. Maybe a little bit of bench press, but I didn't know what I was doing. I did running and sit-ups. That was my exercise. Terrible. And it was really cheap, and I decided to do a 2-week fitness instructor course. It was with a company called the Australian Institute of Fitness, and from day one, I just fell in love with it and ended up doing more studies with them, and I got qualified as a personal trainer. And I never knew personal training was a job. I never knew it existed until when we were doing the final day of the fitness instructor course. They had a personal trainer come in to talk about career opportunities, and I found out that you could have a job where you work with people one-on-one. Big tick for me because I love people, and you can teach them. Big tick because I love teaching, and you can help them get fit. And big tick again, I love fitness, and I was learning about it and learning about anatomy and physiology and biomechanics, and I was just sold. So I kept on studying, and I never really stopped, and qualified as a trainer, got qualified as a strength and conditioning coach, and I set up a boot camp in Australia, and started doing group classes and also one-to-one work in Australia. Started working with triathletes and tennis players, and then I when I was living in Australia, I tried to get a job in New York, which I got very luckily as an assistant coach for an American football training facility up in New York, and I ended up being an assistant strength coach for American footballers, doing all Olympic powerlifting, I guess, and off-season training for American footballers, and I did that for a while. Then when I was in New York, I trained a bunch of athletes, and I moved back to London, and I started training athletes. My CV was pretty good. I mean, having a CV of saying I was already a coach in sports and also trained professional athletes in Australia, professional athletes in New York, my CV was already pretty impressive by the time I was 24. So I just went straight into being a strength and conditioning coach, and I worked with athletes, and that was the start of my career. I mean, I'm going to be 44 next month, so that was 20 years ago. So obviously a lot's changed, but my career started really in earnest 20 years ago in London with a bang, training professional athletes. 25 years ago, sorry. So, no, 28 years ago. Jesus, I'm getting so old. So yeah, that's how I got into fitness, and that was my story. And yeah, I'm sure there's a longer version. I talk about this on interviews somewhere. I think I did a podcast with. Um, I was in, I've been on lots of podcasts as a guest, so often my story is talked about in more detail. But essentially, I got into fitness because I love sports, and yeah, I love teaching and I love being around people. And I think personal training is the best job in the world. And even though I run a business, I run several businesses now. I'm CEO of the Dan Roberts Group, and a lot of my time and energy is spent building that. I do love one-on-one coaching. I think it's the best thing in the world. I've got a client in about an hour and a half. I don't think I'll ever stop being a coach. I think it's brilliant. All right, another question. Sorry that was so long-winded. What has been the most dramatic transformation you've been involved with? Um, it's a good question. I mean, I have a lot of examples of this because the majority of what I do is transforming people. I say most of my clients now are actually actors rather than models, and I'm usually hired to get them prepared for a role. So I've got a lot of examples of actors I've trained up to look and function and feel like their character. So if you're going to play like a secret agent or superhero, you can't just have the muscles. You got to feel that way. So because I teach fighting as well, it's I like a lot of the transformations I've made of people who are not very coordinated, and then they've done a fight scene where they look like Jason Bourne. I mean, I didn't train Matt Damon. Jason Walsh, a good friend of mine in LA, trained Matt Damon, did a fantastic job. But I've trained for people for roles like Jason Bourne, and it is so much fun getting an actor coordinating and skilled, and you see them on screen, and they're doing elbows and flying kicks, and like 6 months ago they couldn't do any of that. That's kind of cool. But actually, the biggest transformation I'm probably most proud of is a guy not in entertainment. He was a finance guy who ran an investment company, and he had really bad scoliosis. He had to walk with two canes, and he came to me saying he wanted to do some sort of fitness because he's seen every surgeon, he's had multiple surgeries, seen every physiotherapist. He can't really fix his body, but he still wants to move in some way. And would I help him? And I was like, yeah, of course I'll help you, but let me find out what's going on first. Let me, as always, with any new client, let me do a full assessment first, and after I do that assessment, then we can discuss if I can help you and how I can help you. And he's like, fine, because you never know, and quite often people don't know what their imbalances are and don't know what they're capable or incapable of, regardless if they're disabled or an athlete. So I did my assessment, and during the assessment, one of the things I did was I wanted to check his mobility, and with his foot, which was basically locked in a certain position, that was one of the reasons why he shuffled when he walked. He couldn't bend it, but when I could manually bend it, and I found that quite interesting because I figured if I could manually bend it, then potentially he could get back that muscle connection, that neuromuscular connection to bend it. And I mentioned it to him. He's like, well, I don't know. I've seen osteos, I've seen physios. So after the assessment, because I'm arrogant, I guess is a word, in terms of that, I really do believe that everyone can get a better body with proper coaching. And I'm quite creative in the way I train people. I guess all those years training athletes and all the thousands and thousands of hours and studying, I am pretty confident. I really believe I'm great at what I do, and I think I have a lot of knowledge. And when I get complex cases, that's when I kind of smile the most. If someone just wants to tone up, it's like, oh, okay, I can do that. But if someone has a lot of different things going on and they've got injuries and this and issues, that's when I can really use my skills. So the more complex a client is, the more I think I can help them. So when he came in, I was, I kind of internally, I was smiling. I was like, Jesus, this is going to be hard. So I gave him a deal. I was like, look, I think I can make you walk a bit better, but I don't know, but I think I can. He's like, well, I was like, yeah, look, I think I can. Just what I ask from you is just come every day for 2 weeks, training me every day for 2 weeks. And if it doesn't work, we'll do anything else. we'll do boxing. I'll do other stuff with you, which would be fun. But give me 2 weeks where I want to try and sort of find out more about this. Will you give me that, and then I promise you I won't mention it again. We'll forget the scoliosis and the way you walk, and we'll focus on other stuff and just try to have fun with your body. And I gave him a list of things we could do regardless of his issues. And he's like, fine, deal. And in that 2 weeks, I basically taught the guy how to walk. It was like I physically. I mean, it's quite technical. I don't know if it's worth going through it in detail in this podcast, but I spent a lot of time talking with um, people who did PhDs in gait and reading books and just like basically he became my major project and just basically I did the best job I could, and after 2 weeks the guy wasn't walking with canes anymore and he'd grew about 6 inches. He could walk properly, and it only took me 2 weeks. And that I was half proud. I was proud. I was proud of myself. I was proud of him because sometimes you have to go through a little bit of pain when you're teaching muscles to do things I haven't done for many years. And I was also became a little bit annoyed with physios and osteos and chiropractors and surgeons who'd seen who basically dismissed him because it was so bad, and it kind of got me pissed off because even though I'm good at my job, it shouldn't be the job of a trainer to fix someone. It should have been um, it should have been his physio, to be honest, or a surgeon should have fixed that. Shouldn't have to come to me. And I was just lucky that I happened to be a slightly obsessive personality type, and slightly arrogant enough to think I could fix him. So there's quite a few lucky reasons I why he got fixed, which isn't right. But either way, that's the thing I guess I'm most proud of as a transformation. Um, the other transformations I'm proud of are not aesthetic ones. I've done some big weight loss journeys, help people go from 95 kilos down to 60 kilos in like 4 months. Stuff like that. I've helped guys get really built and muscular, ready for like men's fitness cover shoots or for movies. But it's a psychology. When you help people who really don't like their body or in a really dark place, and you help them feel more resilient and you help them feel good about their body and you give them like confidence, that's really rewarding. And that's why personal training is the best job in the world, because everyone you meet, there's always more to it than just toning someone up. um, there's always more to it than that. There's always a lot of psychology involved. And if you're a trainer, listen to this. Please appreciate what a massive responsibility and honor it is to help people and to have that time with individuals. And you can make so much difference. And the more you study and the more you understand psychology and physiology and biomechanics and energy systems and how muscles work, the more you know, the more impact you can make on someone else. And I do think we have a moral and ethical responsibility as a coach to be really good. And there's a lot of shit coaches out there, and it's such a shame, and like being a coach in any field is a privilege, and you should remember that. And if you're someone who's going to hire a coach, hire well, really employ some critical reasoning, really study, look at research, look at what your coaches have studied, look at their CV. If they don't have a CV or if they don't have a website, I'd be a little bit nervous about that. Someone who's studied a lot usually puts their qualifications somewhere. you know um, like my qualifications on, I don't think they're on my website, but you can find them on LinkedIn. They're somewhere. If you do your research, you can find out all the things I've studied. Anyone who's done more than one course, they write it down somewhere. And also look at their beliefs, look at their philosophies, look at who they've worked with. Not famous people, that's irrelevant, but if someone's worked with athletes, that usually tells you something, because you can't bullshit an athlete. A professional athlete, will only work with a trainer who really understands that sport or their body, and athletes tend to understand fitness quite well. So don't be, and now I'm not answering the question, but please don't hire people just because they look good. How people look is irrelevant. If I suddenly got really, really fat, am I a worse trainer? No. If I spent the next 6 months stopping training and just doing bodybuilding, so I was ripped and strong, would I be a better trainer? No. No, looks are irrelevant. And you have to You have to transcend that and have a look at people's knowledge. Have a look at how they can help. Alrighty, time for another question. How do you stay motivated? I don't actually. I don't care about motivation. Motivation is she's a fickle creature. I find it waxes and wanes. It goes up and down, and I don't want my life to be condemned by my roller coaster of emotions. So I create rituals. I create routines. That's how I get things done. Which I guess is the point of being motivated. The point of being motivated is to get things done you want to do, right? That's why I have routines and rituals. So one of the things I do to help me, and it helps me massively, is I use some diary management software. I use something called Trello, which is free. It's on the Mac, and it basically you can map out all the shit you need to do and break it down into chunks, into time chunks. So, for example, in my Trello today, I have a column. I have 5 columns. On the column on the far right, it's what I need to do today. The next column is what I need to do this week. Next column is this month. Next column is this year. And next column after that is 5 years. 5-year one, I've got a big question mark because I don't really work in 5-year plans, but I've been meaning to think about it. So I need to fill stuff on there so it makes me think about it. But the point is, when I log on every morning, and this is what I do before I check Instagram, before I check emails, I look at Trello. I'm treated to my goals. Not just my to-do list for today, which isn't that inspiring, but the things I want to get achieved done, and it puts me in the right frame of mind. So does that motivate me? I guess, but sometimes some days I do not feel motivated to do anything. Some days I just want to lie around and watch Netflix, but I tend to not do that because I've got a habit of getting things done. You know, I also a few people have said to me recently that you're a workaholic. I am a bit of a workaholic, but I think that's a bit of a simple way of describing it. I'm just quite extreme. When I do something, I tend to do it properly. When I was 20, well, how old was I? 24? No, before Australia, 21. I decided to live in the Cook Islands, and basically I lived in the Pacific, so the Cook Islands and Tahiti and Hawaii, those 3 islands. I lived there for a year. I spent 3 months in America because then my visa ran out. Then I spent 3 months in Tahiti, then 3 months in Cook Island. Oh, then I spent 3 months in Fiji, sorry. So 3 months in Polynesia, and I think Fiji is in Micronesia, isn't it? Rather than Polynesia? I forget. But either way, I spent a year in the South Pacific. Did I achieve much? No. All I did was grow my hair and work on my tan, and I hung out and partied a lot. Pretty much went out every night, and I made a lot of friends, and I partied, and I just had a ball. I mean, I've been lucky. I've had lots of big adventures in my life, and that was one of them. And yeah, I wasn't motivated to achieve. I just wanted to live life to the full. And at that time, in that year, I lived life to the full. Same as when I was in Thailand and I was fighting. I fought for a year. I had one night out actually when I finished on my 33rd birthday. It was like 10 years ago. But apart from that, didn't drink once. Didn't go out. I didn't get with anybody. I was single at the time. I didn't get with any girl. Didn't do anything. I lived as a monk, as a fighting monk, and I lived and breathed Muay Thai. I was training 6-7 hours a day, pretty much 6 days a week, pretty much, for about 10, 11 months. And then at the end of it, I was fighting and I was beating people, fighting local fighters who've been schooled in Muay Thai for decades, and I was beating them. That was fun. If I went over there and partied and did like 2 hours training a day, I wouldn't have the experience of knowing what it's like to be a good fighter. It would have been like blur. Like I said earlier, I don't want to live a life like that. I don't want you to live a life like that. It's boring. We only have one life. Go for extremes. And me living like a warrior monk for a year was a fascinating experience, and it also inspired Nuksu, which is my latest program, which I'm so proud of. Yeah. So anyway, that's my answer. Let's go to the next question, shall we? Do you go out drinking with clients? Nah, not anymore. Used to in my 20s, but I found it was a very good way of clients leaving you. Even if you didn't make a complete tit out of yourself on a night out, which I have done. I did that once in a BAFTAs after party, in a private party with Kasabian. I was out drinking with Kasabian in a big party, and yeah, I got so messy, and I was talking to people I shouldn't have been talking to, and yeah, you know what, that'll be quite an amusing story to talk about once. But the main thing is to you want to stay classy, and as I've got older, I want to keep classy. So and also the kind of circles I'm around. I'm a coach, and I've got a good reputation of coaching. I don't want to fuck that up by being a pisshead around famous people. So no, I don't go out with clients. I have done, but not for about 10 years. Are you going to do another transformation challenge? Yes, I am. So I did I did something quite big in the summer. For the first time I joined YouTube, and I vlogged every day. I did a body transformation challenge on myself. Actually, it was a fitness transformation challenge with a little bit of body. The main thing is I wanted to push myself. I hadn't really pushed myself. This was when was it, August. I hadn't really trained that hard in a couple of years, if I'm honest. And I wanted to get a bit tougher. Because what happens in life is you get a bit soft unless you go through adversity. So I quite like seeking out adversity. I quite like seeking out challenges because it makes you tougher. And I do that in other areas of my life, in business and stuff, but I hadn't done it in terms of my body for a while. So I needed a bit of a kickstart. So I decided I'd create a really, really intensive transformation program, and I'd vlog about it every day. And it was about 3 hours a day of training, and it ranged. There was fighting, there was weapons training, there was running. I ended up running two 20-mile runs. Bear in mind, I hadn't run more than 10 miles in about 7-8 years previous. So it was a really intensive challenge, and my body changed a lot, and my fitness changed a lot, and I got mentally tougher, and it was brilliant success. It was very intense, and I think only 3 people I know actually followed it completely because they would text me through it. But I put it up on YouTube because I figured it'd be something nice to have on YouTube for in the future. If anyone wants to have a real big challenge, they could go to it and follow along. And yeah, I'm going to do that again. I'm going to do it in January. So if you want to have a big fitness challenge, join me on January 1st. We're going to do a month of very intensive training. It's going to be about 2 hours a day training, and it's going to be weight training and cardio, and it's going to be focused on fitness and body transformation. Not to get really muscular, not to get really skinny, but to get fit, lean, and athletic and capable. So join me January 1st, Dan Roberts TV on YouTube. All right, one more question. Who is your dream client? Well, good question. That's a good question. There's a couple of ways of answering this. Mainly in my business, when I do personal training, like a lot of personal training, and I'm doing 6-7 hours a day, I need to have variety. If I'm just surrounded by like young 21-year-old models, it's too much for me. There's only so much conversation about mother agencies and boyfriends I can have. On the flip side, if I train a bunch of people in hedge funding, I can't handle that for too long either. I like variety, and I never specialized in my career. I do work for a lot of actors, but I have worked with a bunch of doctors, lawyers, musicians, dancers, singers. I've worked with porn stars. I've worked with strippers. I've worked with princesses. It's been very eclectic, and I do like that. And I think it makes me a better coach because I can draw from different experiences, and also it makes me sane because if I just stayed with one type of person, I don't know, I'd be bored, and if I'm bored, I can't work properly. So variety is key. I do like being around people who are kind and are thoughtful. My favorite clients tend to be people who've lived life, not in like a wild way, but they've lived a life. Like they've had ups and downs in their life. I find when people have had ups and downs, usually anyone by the time they've hit 40 have had ups and downs. They've lost people they've loved. They've had success. They've had failure. They're usually more fun to talk to than someone who's 19 or 20, no matter how talented they are. Now, I must admit though, I've worked with quite a few musicians, a couple of people in rock bands, some lead singers of rock bands, like old school rock bands, and they were fun. Because I find rock and roll singers, like lead singers, they tend to live a life slightly differently from other people in the public eye. People are so focused on their personal brand nowadays, and people are so health conscious. It's quite refreshing in a weird way. I know I'm a trainer, I'm into wellness, but it's quite refreshing for me to meet someone when I ask them on a Wednesday morning session, hey, how was last night? And they tell me about all their drugs they got up to, and they slept with 3 different people, and that's amusing. And I grew up in the 90s in Manchester. The 90s was a more hedonistic decade and a bit more fun decade. No one had camera phones, and people didn't care about their personal brand as much. And uh, people in the public eye were more fun. Generally, now people in the public eye are not as much fun as they used to be because everyone is so self-conscious. Um, and I'm partly to blame because people are so conscious about their body and need to get fit and need to eat well, and you can't go out drinking every night. And I get that, but I do think sometimes when people are in uh, like YouTubers, I've trained quite a lot of YouTube stars and who are like 23 and they're millionaires, and I do think sometimes they need to learn how to party a bit more, and they're so conscious about being healthy and creating good content and not upsetting their 16-year-old fans. It's like, I don't know, they're missing out. If I was worth millions at 24, if anyone is worth millions at 24, you should really go wild and fuck it and get into gambling and sleeping around and taking drugs. And I mean, this isn't a popular view. I get that, but I do think your 20s is a time for exploration. Your 30s is a time to kind of figuring shit out and starting your career. And hopefully by 40, you've got life pretty much sorted. Like, you're settled. You don't want to be going out, sleeping around, getting pissed in your 40s. It's a bit naff, to be honest. Nor do you want to stay in and drink kale smoothies when you're 19. You're missing out. Life goes through an evolution, and it's yes, you have to let go of things as you age. With if you want to progress and grow, and you got to let go of things with dignity, I think. But there's a time for wildness and there's a time for experimentation, and a lot of young people I meet, they miss out on that because of the culture we live in at the moment. So aside from working with more rock stars, which I'm always open to, so if you're a lead singer of a rock band and you're fucking yourself up every night but you fancy getting fit, give me a shout. I won't judge you. We can chat, and I'll help you out. I'll ease you into a well-being lifestyle over a period of 5 years rather than 5 months. It'd be fun. And there's a couple of people in the public eye, a couple of actors. There's one guy in particular who I've met briefly. I don't know him. I don't know him at all, but he's got an aura about him, and he's a talented guy, and I know he works hard, and I would like to work with him on a project. That's Tom Hardy. I think he's a very cool guy, very worldly, very talented actor. I mean, it's very attractive being around talented people. They've got an aura about them. I think a lot of people have auras, but people of supreme talent will see the world differently, who take risks. It's always attractive, So Tom Hardy, I'd like to work with. He's got a long-term trainer who's a good mate of his, so I probably never will. But you never know on a project. So yeah, that'd be good. There's a lot of other actors and actresses who interest me as well. But we'll see what happens. I've been lucky. If I don't train anyone ever again, I've got a bunch of stories, which I guess I have to take to the grave with me. And I've had a bunch of experiences with amazing clients. So it's a bit greedy to ask for more, I guess, isn't it? Anyway, I think that's where we'll end it. I think that was 11 questions. I think so. So I hope you enjoyed my Q&A today. This is the end of Series 1 of the MX podcast. Series 2, we have more interviews, more discussion of well-being, more tips about getting fit and getting lean and getting the body you want. Hopefully you'll find it really useful. I've never done a podcast before, so this first series was a big old experiment. I tried to release an episode every Wednesday. I failed on that. I think most weeks I did it every Wednesday. I think I had a couple of breaks where I took like a week off or 2 weeks off. But I hope you enjoyed it. I'd love your feedback. If you go to iTunes, if you could give me a review and feedback, just be honest. If you thought it sucked, let me know. If you thought it was wonderful, let me know. All feedback is useful. It helps me plan out, because basically over New Year, like the first week of January, I'm going to plan out my next series. I've already got some interviews already stored up, but I want to make sure it's better. I want to make sure it's entertaining and educating you more. So please let me know, or drop me an email at dan@danrobertsgroup.com. Give me some feedback. Give me some, give me some tips. Give me some ideas. I'm always happy to learn. I do want this podcast show to carry on for a long time. I'm going to have lots of different series, and I want to make sure it improves every single series. All right. Over and out. Have a lovely Christmas and look after yourself, and please stay safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the MX Podcast. All feedback, reviews, and social shares are very much appreciated. To find out more about the Methodology X Online Members Club, our award-winning MX group fitness classes, or to join our global family of MX instructors, please visit danrobertsgroup.com.